There's a certain kind of person who leaves you thinking afterward that you had a great conversation, and yet you couldn't quite repeat what they actually said. Every word they used was exact, nothing rambled, nothing was vague by accident, and somehow you walked away impressed and strangely unable to answer the question, what does this person actually think? That's not an accident of style. That's a nervous system running a silent calculation on every sentence before it leaves their mouth. Not what's true, but what happens if I say this to this person right now. Once you notice that calculation, careful speech stops sounding like intelligence. It starts sounding like strategy. This is human nature decoded. If psychology like this is worth understanding, the like and subscribe buttons are right there. Now, back to the investigation. Point 1. The pause that isn't hesitation. Most people assume a pause before answering means someone is thinking of what to say. With careful speakers, the pause is usually doing something else, running the sentence through a filter before it's allowed out. Not, is this true, but what does this cost me if I say it out loud to this person right now? That's not slower thinking, it's a second process layered on top of the first, a real-time risk assessment most people never consciously notice they're running. You felt the difference yourself. Some pauses feel like someone searching for words, others feel like someone quietly checking a door before opening it. Point 2. Choosing words for consequence, not meaning. It isn't dishonesty that decides the sentence, it's something quieter than that. Watch closely, and careful speakers rarely reach for the most accurate word. They reach for the one with the safest fallout. The manager who says, let's circle back on that, instead of no. The friend who says, I have some concerns, instead of I disagree. The sentence isn't built for clarity, it's built for what happens next, how the listener will react, repeat it, or use it later. Meaning takes a back seat to consequence. That single shift changes almost everything about how the sentence gets built. Point 3. Why precision can hide more than it reveals. Here's the part that catches most people off guard. The more precise someone's language, the less you often actually learn about them. Precision feels like transparency because exact words feel deliberate and trustworthy, but exact words can be chosen specifically to give away the minimum required. A sentence can be completely accurate and still be built so nothing personal, uncertain, or risky slips through. Precision and openness aren't the same thing, they just happen to look identical from the outside. Point 4. What strategic ambiguity is actually protecting. Watch a careful speaker navigate a real disagreement, and the pattern becomes obvious. The vaguer the moment, the more they have writing on it. Staying vague usually protects one of three things: status, control, or emotional safety. It preserves the option to redefine a position later without looking inconsistent. It avoids handing anyone a fixed target to push back against. And it keeps the speaker's actual feelings, the ones that might invite judgment, completely out of the room. None of this requires conscious manipulation. Most people who do this learned it the way everyone learns self-protection, by noticing, somewhere along the way, that being fully readable had a cost. Point 5. What the research gets right and what it misses. When researchers who study first impressions look at how people rate guarded, careful speakers, they consistently find the same split. These speakers are often rated as more competent and simultaneously as less warm. Think of the executive whose every sentence sounds airtight in a meeting and who nobody quite feels close to afterward. That's not a coincidence, and it isn't a personality flaw either. It's the trade nobody negotiates directly. Precision buys credibility. It quietly costs connection. Careful speakers are usually optimizing for exactly one of those two outcomes, being taken seriously, often without realizing they're paying for it with the other. Point 6. How to tell thoughtful from guarded. So, how do you tell genuinely thoughtful people from guarded ones when both sound careful? The distinction isn't in the words, it's in what happens when you push. A thoughtful person, pressed for specifics, becomes clearer. The precision was in service of getting it right. A guarded person, pressed for specifics, becomes more careful, not less. The precision was in service of staying safe. Clarity that increases under pressure is thought. Clarity that tightens under pressure is defense. So the person who talks to you and leaves you impressed but somehow unreadable isn't necessarily hiding something sinister. They're someone whose words have been trained, probably over years, to survive contact with other people before they're trusted to simply mean something. Careful language was never really about intelligence. It was a running prediction of what the world would do with every sentence, made so quickly it stopped feeling like a decision at all. Which leaves an open question worth sitting with. If guarded precision is one way people control what gets revealed, what does the opposite pattern look like? The people who give almost everything away effortlessly, without seeming to calculate it at all. That's exactly the territory covered in "People who are effortless to talk to have this in common." This is Human Nature Decoded. See you on the next analysis.